Can a Catholic hold to the view that these were the sons of James from a previous marriage and therefore Jesus' stepbrothers? Or must they believe these are Jesus's cousins? See? Are you listening? Are you listening? You guys listening? Why? Because I'm going to show you how to destroy the misuse of Mark 6:3-4 by anti-Catholics, anti-Orthodox. Anti-Catholics, anti-Orthodox. But you got to listen. In this article, John B. Lightfoot shows, with the possible exception of Tertullian, and that's not certain. Listen to me. He says, if you read all the early Christian writings, Protevangelium, James the Lesser, early churchmen, whether theologians, apologists, fathers, they all believe Mary had no children. That they didn't disagree. Tertullian, he says, may be the possible exception, but he says it's not certain. Now, William has references showing Tertullian did not deny Mary's perpetual virginity. You must read this because he shows, right here, I quote, I'm not going to quote it now, but it's there in bold. Go and read in bold, right here. It's long. Long. And I did a session on this already. All right. I'm going to sum up what he says. The dominant view, listen, Catholics, the dominant view early on, very early, and what was the majority view is that these were the sons of Joseph from a previous marriage. You can find early on the view, these are his cousins, but the dominant view and early view was these are Joseph's sons from a previous marriage. Who then influenced majority of Christians to adopt the view these are Jesus's cousins, not the sons of Joseph? Jerome. Jerome, later on, adopted the view these are his cousins, and because Jerome is a giant, his influence impacted majority of Christians to believe these are Jesus's cousins. Okay, now, if the earlier view and the dominant view was these are the children of Joseph from a previous marriage, why is it then later on they went with the view of cousins, and why the debate? Why the confusion? Okay, my assumption is this. The reason why there was a view out there that said that these are Jesus's cousins, not the children of Joseph. And the reason why I believe Jerome picked it up, and because of his influence, it became the dominant view after Jerome. Notice, after Jerome, 4th century, the dominant view in the West was, these are Jesus' cousins. My understanding is this, that there were some who believed that Joseph himself remained a virgin. You with me there? Joseph himself was a virgin. So when that became a view held by influential Christians that Joseph himself was a virgin, then it made sense they would go with the view these are Jesus's cousins. Listen, but early on, and the dominant view was Joseph was already married, had children from a previous wife. And that's why they're called Jesus's brothers, because they were stepbrothers. Now, why is that beautiful? That means no matter what position you take, you destroy the Protestant objection. Let me show you how to do it. You ready now? With that all in view, the documentation is there. And who documented it? John B. Lightfoot. Did you know that John B. Lightfoot himself took the view that these are not the actual brothers of Jesus Christ? Did you know another renowned, reputable Protestant scholar who wrote a book on the relatives of Jesus? and William has the book. He sent me a PDF copy of it. Richard Bauckham, a Protestant, wrote a book on Jesus's relatives, and he argues that the evidence is these are not the children of Mary, the biological brothers of Christ from Mary's womb, and he believes and holds to the view that these were the cousins of Jesus. Yes, that's why right there in the Protevangelium, our oldest extant source teaches Joseph was quite old and had children from a previous marriage, right, William? Okay, are you with me there? So if we're going to use the Protevangelium as being our oldest extant source, giving us accurate traditions, accurate oral traditions, then this source teaches they are brothers of Jesus because they were the sons of Joseph from previous marriage. Now, you ready? See, this is what I pray the Holy Spirit helps me. I pray the Holy Spirit helps me not only parrot arguments, but dig deeper, sharpen those arguments, and make them more airtight so I can help you make the best possible defense. So I started thinking about this. How can I make these arguments stronger? And how can I anticipate objections and destroy them? Now, let me help you. You ready? You ready? Okay, let's go here. They'll say, see, Mark 3, 31, 35. Then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived, standing outside. They sent someone in to call him, and a crowd was sitting around him. They told him, your mother and your brothers are outside looking for you. Who are my mother and my brothers? He asked. Then he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother. So then James White in a debate said, so you want us to believe that in actuality they're saying, these are your mother and cousins? And the audience laughed. Mother and cousins? Come on. And they laughed. All right. They'll use this. Watch here. Mark 6, verses 3 to 4. Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son? And the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him. Now, those who hold that these are the relatives of Christ will say, the brothers here are not literal biological brothers. They are his cousins, his relatives. And as William and others will do, they'll say, you know how we know? Because of verse 4, the parallel. Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except in his own town, among his relatives. Sun genis in his own home. So here, the argument is, you see, they're not his brothers, but his relatives raised in the same home. But because they were raised in the same home, because they were so close, they are called brothers and sisters. Okay, now I anticipate the Protestant saying this. Are you ready? I'm trying to anticipate their objection. You ready to hear this? A Protestant can say, no. Yep, speaking about sungenis, exactly, same Greek word. No, it doesn't mean they are his cousins, and that the reason why they're called his brothers and sisters is because they're raised in the same home. On the contrary, the reason why Jesus can speak about his relatives is because they were related to him. How were they related to him? They were his brothers and sisters. In other words, they're saying it's a reverse. We are told what kind of relatives they were. They were his brothers and sisters. And if you're my brother, you're related to me. So they'll flip and saying, no, you got it wrong. We are already told who are his relatives. What relatives? Uncles, aunts, cousins? No, brothers and sisters. So it's not that they are cousins raised in the same home, and because they're so close, they're called brothers and sisters. It's the opposite. We are being told they are his relatives because they're his brothers and sisters. You get the argument? So in other words, it becomes stalemate. That's what a Protestant is going to say, and you're going to object, and you get nowhere. No, I disagree. They're only called brothers and sisters because these were his cousins, his relatives raised in the same home. And because of that close connection, affinity, they're called brothers and sisters, though they were his cousins, his relatives. Protestants, no, I disagree with you. The reason why Jesus says his relatives in his home, because we're told what kind of relationship he had with them, what kind of relatives they were. They weren't his uncles, they weren't his aunts, they weren't his cousins, they were his brothers and sisters. Well, stalemate. No one wins, and you can say, I disagree, and he can say he disagrees. But let me show you, if we go with the view, that doesn't mean they win. That just means they won't get obliterated, clobbered. It'll be a stalemate, meaning if you're a Protestant, you're going to say, I disagree with the Catholic. You're Catholic, you're going to say, I disagree with the Protestant. But let me show you the way to clobber them. You ready? If we go with the view, they are Joseph's children from a previous marriage, now you win. Either position is good, but I'm saying when I'm now confronted with this, I know how to bury them. John 1:45. Philip found, Nathanael told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Just like they say, Jesus' mother, brothers and sisters, they also say Joseph is his father, the son of Joseph. Watch where I'm going with this. Because I want to make it as sharp as possible, destroy objections, leaving them no stone, right? No stone that's unturned. Son of Joseph, all right. John 6:41-42. At this, the Jews there began to grumble about him because he said, am I the bread that came down from heaven? I am the bread that came down from heaven. They said, is this not the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How can he now say I came down from heaven? So this is what I tell the Protestants. Was Joseph Jesus's biological father? No. He was his legal father, right? Yes. And therefore he was his legal son, right? Yes. Likewise, just like Joseph is not his biological father, his brothers are not his biological brothers. They are his stepbrothers because Joseph is his adoptive father. You get the point? They are no more literally his biological brothers than Joseph is his biological father, even though he's said to be the son of Joseph, and they're said to be his brothers and sisters. You can still affirm they are his brothers and sisters legally, adoptively, just like Joseph is his father, legally and adoptively, and you still win. After this, Jesus went around in Galilee. He did not want to go about in Judea because the Jewish leaders there were looking for a way to kill him. When the Jewish festival of Tabernacles was near, Jesus' brother said to him, leave Galilee, go up to Judea, so the disciples there may see the works you do. No one wants to become a public figure, acts in secret. Since you are doing these things, show yourself to the world, for even his own brothers did not believe in him. What brothers? The sons of Joseph. Just like he's not the biological son of Joseph, John 6:42, John 1:45, they are not the biological brothers and sisters of Jesus. They are the legal brothers and sisters of Jesus because they're the sons of Joseph, and Joseph is his legal father. Bye-bye, Protestant objection. It's over. Which brings me to my final point here. If they tell you, well, how do you know they are Jesus's legal brothers and sisters? The Bible doesn't say it. I know it from the same sources from which you know Mark wrote Mark, Matthew wrote Matthew, Luke wrote Luke and Acts, John wrote John, from the same sources who preserved your canon, the early Christians. That's how I know. If these early Christians can be trusted to preserve your Gospels and tell you who wrote them, they can be also trusted to tell you who the brothers were. Game over. You understand why I asked the Spirit to help me go deeper, take arguments, and try to make them sharper to make you guys unbeatable in the battle? Why do you think I mentioned this article? Here's your full documentation. They all taught Mary had no children. John B. Lutford admits it. No one taught Mary had children. They taught these were either Jesus's brothers because they were cousins, which became the dominant view later, but the earliest and majority view was these are Jesus's brothers because they are the sons of Joseph of a previous marriage, so they are his legal brothers, his stepbrothers, because Joseph was his legal father. You see? Now we've made the argument sharper. So if they tell me, well, hold on. It says his mother and brothers, and his brothers and sisters are named. I go, yeah, they are his brothers and sisters. What do you mean? They are his legal brothers and sisters, his stepbrothers and sisters, because they're the sons of Joseph from a previous marriage. And just like Jesus can be the son of Joseph, not biologically, legally, they can be his brothers and sisters legally, not biologically. You got it? You understand? Whether you take the cousin's view, they can't refute you. At best, it's stalemate. Or if you take that they are the legal brothers and sisters, his stepbrothers and sisters, because they're the sons and daughters of Joseph Reeves' marriage, they can't refute that because if they ask you where you get that from, I got it from the same Christians who told you Mark wrote Mark, Luke wrote Luke and Acts, Matthew wrote Matthew, John wrote John, who preserved those scriptures, the early Christians. And none of them believed Mary had any children after Christ. So if you can't trust them in that regards, how do you know that they can be trusted to tell you these are the Gospels inspired by the Spirit through these men? You can't have your cake and eat it too.